welcome to an episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason, and this is a Historic National Road episode. And in this episode, I'm combining two places into one. In other words, I'm doing two different towns. The first of which is Cambridge City, and the other one will be Centerville, Indiana. But I am in Cambridge City, Indiana, and I was going to do a full episode, and I was going to take you to the Huddleston House, which is on the west end of town, but it looked like it was temporarily closed, like it hadn't been open for a long time. But supposedly it's a very historic place, and it's a museum. It's got a lot of like barns and farm equipment and a lot of other stuff that exemplify talks about a lot of 19th century life, and of course historic National Road life on there. But unfortunately, it was closed. I mean, it wasn't really blocked off. I kind of drove on it, like on the driveway, but I felt like I was trespassing at the same time, so I just didn't really bother. But I'm downtown, and this is where a lot of antique malls are, and there's a historical marker next to me, and I will read it off to you, talk about the history of Cambridge City. So here we go. All right, established 1836, according to that banner over there. All right, so put up by the Indiana Historical Bureau in 1992. A transportation center, planned 1836 along the Whitewater River, the Cumberland/National Road, and the Whitewater Canal route. 4 steam railroads serve the town. Interurban Electric Railroad opened 1903. Cambridge City Historic District listed in National Register in 1991. And I'm willing to bet that, yeah, it says the same on the back. But they do have some interesting murals here in this town, and there's an antique mall called the National Road Antique Mall. So yes, this city definitely does proudly pay tribute to its status on the National Road. Let me show you that mural right there. Now this mural looks pretty brand new. On the side there it says single G 1 point, I'm sorry, here I'll just let you read it. Because I really know nothing about horse racing. And this was done by Pamela Bliss Gallery. Very nice. I mean, I'm sure without a doubt these buildings date back at least 120 years. I mean, look at the architecture and the wooden doors on top. See that over there? Oh my gosh. But you can definitely tell that they're proudly restoring them, making them into small businesses and such. And here's just a little small park with a gazebo, and I happened to stumble upon this historical marker. It's called the Dinky. It says here, a line extended between Cambridge City and Milton with a car going every hour. This car resembled the streetcars and was dubbed the Dinky. The fee was 5 cents. Open cars were run in the summer and closed cars in the winter. Last run on December 20th, 1925. I swear, in just about every town and city in Indiana, everybody drives a loud car. I'm not talking about trucks, I'm talking about like all different kinds. And I was not aware that Abraham Lincoln's funeral train passed through here. It was on April 30th, 1865, and then they celebrated the 150th anniversary of that in 2015. How nice. I like how the color kind of meshes with the sky. Let me see what it says over here. Here's another fine looking mural. This one is about Union Army General Solomon Meredith, who lived from 1810 to 1875. This one was also done by the Pamela Bliss Gallery, as well as Carly Mattingly D, 2018. And this is also part of the Whitewater Canal Scenic Byway, as well as the Historic National Road. But it says here, Cincinnati is 81 miles. I guess if you go down the Whitewater Canal. But yeah, 1836 to 1863. Wow, interesting stuff. I will see you in the next town, which is Centerville. Alright, so I'm on my way to Centerville, and I had a detour. Take a detour from the old Route 40 and National Road and take the interstate, which is just right over there. Loud trucks and cars extraordinaire, but I thought I'd stop here briefly at the Warm Glow Candle Company outlet store. And that, my friends, is the world's largest candle. Not a real one, but definitely takes the title, I guess. All right, I'll see you in town. All right, now I'm in Centerville, and I'm standing in front of their public library, which was erected in 1867. Wow. Building looks definitely old, but it definitely has been, remodeled pretty much. And in front of that building is another kiosk. Now, there was supposed to be one in Cambridge City at the Huddleston House, but I did not see one. Otherwise, I would have stopped and looked at it. This one's a little lengthy, but now the National Road was also called the National Pike, and yeah, many different origins for that, I imagine, but the National Road along which you now stand arrived in Centerville in 1832. Centerville was an early pike town, regularly spaced about a day's journey apart by wagon. Pike towns welcomed travelers and catered to their needs. Pike towns were named for the turnpike, or pole that restricted the entrance to toll roads. In Indiana, many segments of the National Road were operated as toll roads in the 19th century. Indiana pike towns such as Centerville, Richmond, Cambridge City, and Terre Haute were bustling hubs of activity. And Centerville was, and I guess still is, a dusty, noisy town. I mean, a lot of cars and trucks going by, but that's pretty much been the norm in every Indiana town I've encountered so far on the National Road. But at one time, in Centerville, the ringing of blacksmith hammers, the clatter of horses and oxen, noisy children, and barking dogs accompanied the endless procession of wagons, stages, and coaches. Above the din could be heard the discussions of busy Hoosiers mixed with the regional dialects of travelers from the East, the voices of free and enslaved African Americans, and the accents of European laborers and travelers. But not everyone traveled in Conestoga wagons. The wealthy traveled in fine coaches, others traveled on horseback, and many simply walked. Wow. Some arrived with nothing but a few possessions on their back, while others arrived with scores of sheep and hogs. Regardless of their wealth, status, or conveyance, a pike town was a welcome sight for all travelers. Here was an opportunity to rest for a few hours, have a warm meal, and catch up on the latest news. It was also a good place to settle and open a business, and many Hoosiers grew rich selling supplies, offering accommodations, or repairing broken wheels for the hundreds of travelers passing through town each day. Over time, pike towns like Centerville evolved from essential National Road service centers to prosperous communities with diverse local economy. Now, this is in Pennsylvania, but there's a toll house there, the old Petersburg Addison Toll House, one of the few remaining toll houses along the entire National Road. I'm definitely going to check that out once I'm in that state. The architecture of prosperity. Centerville's architecture is a testament to the wealth the National Road brought to Indiana. Many of the brick and stone buildings are evocative of the fashionable feral style of the day. Their quality materials and designs speak to the town's enviable economic position between the growing markets of the East and the raw materials and agricultural bounty of the West. They stand as solid reminders of Centerville's prosperity during the heyday of the National Road, which was from 1830 to 1850. The Mansion House, a popular stage stop in the home of Daniel Lance, a prominent wagon maker, are just a few steps away. I'll show you that in a minute. And over 100 of Centerville's buildings are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Wow. On the back of the marker, if you've followed this series, the Indiana Historic National Road, now all these kiosks have the same back text. Like this one talks about how the automobile revived the National Road in the 1920s. Now the National Road, with the coming of railroads and faster transportation, the National Road did suffer after 1850. But like it says on here, it made a comeback. As cars and trucks took to the road, the federal government established a nationwide network of paved all-weather highways. The old National Road was one of the first routes designated under the new federal highway numbering system in 1926. U.S. Route 40, a transcontinental highway from Atlantic City, New Jersey to San Francisco, California. Once again, the road gave rise to new opportunities. But until the 1970s, with the completion of Interstate 70, US 40 was one of the country's primary east-west routes. Yes, this is Highway 40. In 2002, the U.S. Secretary of Transportation designated the historic National Road from Maryland to Illinois an All-American Road. Indiana is actively working to preserve its segment of the road, structures, and landscapes along this historic corridor. And here is a map See, I started in Terre Haute. I was going backwards technically, as many national road travelers, I'm sure a majority of them would rather travel westward from Maryland, but I'm going from the Illinois side. So I started on this trip in Terre Haute, Brazil, Rising Hall, Plainfield, Indianapolis, Greenfield, Knightstown. I skipped Louisville for a number of reasons. There was a lot of road construction in that town. I was not able to make left turns during my time driving through there, and if I were to turn around, I mean, it would have been a lot of time consumption, so that's my excuse. And now I was in Cambridge City, which is the first half of this video, and then Centerville, and then on my way to Richmond. So before I sign off, I will take you to that old mansion house. Check it out. So apparently at one point, Centerville was the only community on the national road from Terre Haute to Richmond besides Indianapolis. So that's interesting stuff. Well, what about Knightstown? It doesn't mention Knightstown in my research, but this historic small town charm dating back to 200 years ago can still be experienced today with all this old architecture and everything. This here is the Mansion House Museum. Oops, stepped in something. I'll give you a front shot of that in a second. Oh, there's also the Salisbury Log Courthouse, which was built from 1811 to 1812. I'll get up close to that. I imagine this is an old toll house, not an outhouse. I'm trying to figure out why it says watchman on duty, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. during dawn to dusk. Still, it's a really nice looking retro building there. All right, here is, what's it say on, oh, it's the old, what's up, doggy? Old Salisbury Courthouse. Wayne County's first seat of justice, built 1811 in Salisbury. Reconstructed in 1952 on this site. The only original log courthouse still standing in Old Northwest Territory. Wow. This was put up here in 1965. Very cool. And that is the front part of the mansion house. And I'll read you these plaques over here. Alright, so down here, over here, it says the Mansion House Historic National Road Tavern, built 1837. Presented to the Wayne County, Indiana Historical Society, January 1967. And then Mansion House Inn, purchased by Historic Centerville Incorporated in 1975. And John Scott, pioneer journalist, Centerville editor, and publisher of Indiana Gazette's here. Okay. Also here in Centerville is the old house of Oliver Morton, who was Indiana's Civil War governor. But unfortunately, I mean, it's private property, but I'm sure they wouldn't mind people take a look. But unfortunately, I will not be visiting it today. It is somewhere in this town, though. All right, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason, and thanks for tuning into this two-part episode, or two-town episode of Historic National Road. I am on to the last Indiana community on the Historic National Road, and that's Richmond. See you guys there. All right, Jason, sign off.